Hi, I'm Namita Ramani, founder of Above Digital and your host for successful marketing for small businesses in Dubai. Welcome again to the show. And today I have a very adventurous guest with me. His name is Matt Farr. He's a British expat and founder of Mountain Quest, an alternative travel company specializing in Himalayan adventures that he started in 2010. He came to Dubai in 2007 as a portfolio manager at Emirates NBD and living a high finance lifestyle. In March 2008, he was planning to go for a luxury holiday to Thailand in a nature reserve, and during his visit to the doctor for vaccinations, was told that his blood pressure was very high and he should seriously consider changing his lifestyle. That day, he decided to try different things and planned a trip to Everest Base Camp instead. That experience ended up changing his life. The trek opened his eyes to the beauty of the real world and the lure of the mountains. After finishing that trip, he came back to UAE, yearning to leave for the trekking trails and get on the snow and ice capped mountains themselves. He then actively started climbing in Nepal, the Alps, and Scottish Highlands. In 2010, he was given another job offer when he was already questioning his career, and after a couple of weeks of deliberation, decided to quit and start his own company that is now called Mountain Quest in 2010. Let's hear his story on why he decided to leave his high paying banking job and start a mountain travel company and explore entrepreneurship and how it has been so far for him. Matt, welcome, and thank you so much for accepting my invite to come and share your journey with us.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm looking forward to it.
Pleasure. Uh, it must have been really tough to let go a high-paying job of a banking industry. You could have done both the things. You could have gone ahead and climbed mountains on a, leisurely and still had the high-paying job. Why did you choose to quit and take such a big risk in life?
It's a combination of things. I think firstly, I was about 27 years old. So back
Yeah,
then you're just happy to do anything, and
take
risk
risks.
doesn't seem as bad as it might do now. Now I'm 38.
Yeah.
So if that was going to happen again today, I can't tell you if I'd do the same thing. Not because I'm not happy, but just your view on risk changes as you get older, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Why did I decide to do it? Because I just wasn't passionate in my current industry that I was in at the time. Getting up in the morning, you should be excited to do what you're doing, and I wasn't. Sunday morning, as it was, of course, when I was moving to the UAE, just wasn't fun for me. Getting up and trying to find some sort of motivation to go to the office was lacking. And as a result of that, I realized that life is just way too short to live like that. And that's what made me change tact.
But then you had high blood pressure in 27. Isn't that just a young age to have high blood pressure?
It's a very young age, yeah. Well, it does run in our family, so
Okay.
it didn't come as a massive shock. But my doctor told me that the reason why I had high blood pressure wasn't because of what was happening in my family. It was because of what was happening in my lifestyle. So, the 15-hour days, the bad lifestyle, the bad habits, drinking too much, not exercising enough. The whole combination was kind of leading to that.
Oh, okay. You've done chemistry with management studies from the University of Nottingham. How did you like the chemistry and banking trading? Like, it doesn't match, right? Something is.
Yeah, it doesn't match at all. So I've had this question so many times over the years, mostly when talking to students. They're asking about their career path, what they should do. For me, actually, I went into it a different way. So when I went to university, I guess there's a kind of theme coming here. I just decided to study something that I liked and found interesting. Because for me, I kind of knew at that time that I wanted to work in finance when, as much as you do know when you're 16 or 17 years old. And so my thought process was, well, I don't need to do a finance degree. I don't need to do an economics degree. But as long as I have a degree that's in numbers, numerical, then I will be able to make that transition. And it did end up being that way. So I wasn't too concerned really about what I studied, as long as it was something that I actually found interesting and could push through when times got tough and continue, having that motivation.
So you took up chemistry thinking you would do what?
Finance.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so I did think that I would go into banking. I had
Why
no
didn't
intention.
Why didn't you study something related to finance?
Like I said, I just wanted to do something that I found interesting. I wanted to learn more about that subject because I got passionate about it from a teacher who really brought it to life at school. And I thought, before I move into the career that I think I want to do, I want to learn as much as I can about this subject, and just went down that path.
Interesting. Um, when you decided to open the company, did you have a business plan? Did you make a business plan? How did the company idea, like, maybe you can share with us your journey of how you decided to open a mountain company from the mountain experience you had?
Yeah, it's a good story, actually. I'm
Yeah.
happy to share this one.
Yeah.
I was having no plans when I set the company up. So to say it happened by accident is probably a disservice. But really what happened was I knew I wanted to quit finance. So I'd been in the mountains, like you said into the introduction for me. And I've been into the mountains several times, falling in love with the place, wanting to go back more and more, finding a new passion. And what that told me was that I should leave what I'm currently doing. It helped to confirm that to me. And so my thought process was at the age of 27, quit my current career, quit the job I hate, get out of it, and then make a decision on what I'm going to do. I had no plan. What I did have was some savings. And that really helped to give me clarity of mind to be able to move on rather than have that fear of nothing, if you know what I mean. So I quit my job with no plan. I went to the Himalayas to go climbing to kind of clear my mind because I see climbing as a form of meditation. And we went up there, we climbed, it was great. I was with my close friend Nima, who's now my business partner. And when we came down, I had this really unique experience for me at the time, at the age of, I think, 27. If I'm getting the ages wrong, forgive me, but it's been a while now. And we were sitting at about 5,000 meters in this village, just at the base of this mountain. And I was having lunch made for me by the local tea house owner, who happened to be a lady with maybe a 3-month-old baby. And while she's making me noodles or rice or whatever it is I was eating, she asked me to hold her baby, which I'd never done in my entire life. So I held this baby, very scared of hurting the baby or holding it incorrectly, but the baby was so happy, just smiling at me, and it just made me calm. So anyway, I'm holding the baby, having lunch made for me. Nima is sitting there chatting, and he's asking how work is going. And I said, well, I just quit my job. And he said, oh, okay, when do you start your new one? I said, I don't know. He said, what do you mean? I said, I just quit my job. I'm not going back into finance. He said, well, how are you going to survive? What are you going to do? I said, I have no idea, but I'm sure I'll work it out. And then he said to me, he said, can I ask you a question after a small pause? I said, yeah, sure. And he goes, I've been wanting to ask you something for a long time, for a couple of years, but I've just never known how to say it. And I said, well, what is it? Just ask. Because we've become quite close by then. And he said, I'm fed up of being a guide. I want to be kind of in charge of the company and going down my own journey, wanting to do what I want to do rather than what other people are telling me. I said, oh, carry on. He said, so I've always wondered if you would be interested in being a silent partner in me setting up my own business in Nepal. And so I paused for a little bit and I said, no, I'm not interested. And he goes, okay, no worries. He said, I just wanted to ask. I said, no, hang on, hear me out. And I said, let's do it together. I said, this is obviously come at a time where I should be listening. I said, I've just quit my career. I'm sitting in the mountains having this amazing, unique experience. You're coming to me, offering me the chance to try and work in the industry of what I love and I'm finding passionate, what I've learned. I said, let's do it together. I don't want to be silent. Let's be active and let's go for it.
Awesome.
And that was the story.
Wow. And just out of the blue, sitting on the mountain, you decided.
Yeah, I look at it, looking back, I look at it as having the state of mind to be open. So when things present themselves, to be aware that they're presenting themselves. You know, it's so easy for us to be running around in the world and missing these opportunities. But I think things come around for a reason. And we should be open to those. And I was open to things at that point, and I've never looked back.
You didn't have a little fear that, what am I doing? What if it doesn't work out? Who will go to Himalayas with me? Like, how am I going?
You know what? It's so long ago now. So it's like 11 years. I'm sure I must have had something.
Yeah.
But just as a young guy, a young single man, I was just willing to take bigger risks. Yeah, just willing to go. And I was doing a lot of so-called extreme sports at the time. I was doing a lot of mountain climbing, rock climbing, skydiving. I think I was just trying to find something in life that I loved. And I was more motivated to find that passion than I was fearful of leaving something else behind.
So I think that is the key. When you're trying to look for an opportunity, when you're looking to open something up and waiting for opportunities, that's what you should look for. You should be more excited of what's going to happen in future than be scared of what you're going to leave behind, I guess.
I think so. And like I mentioned earlier, I think it all depends on timing. You know, if I'm 40 years old, married, 2 children,
Then your fears would be much more than...
Absolutely, because I have much bigger responsibilities and different responsibilities. As a 27-year-old single guy, I was able to take that risk. But it all goes back, for me personally, to the passion. And I think we're probably going to talk a little bit about that today. And that, for me, was the key. And looking back, it's still the key.
So you started with a business plan or something? You went back and made a business plan, and how did you come up and just set up a company here and there?
Yeah, so you mentioned that earlier. I forgot to talk about it, but maybe I was not wanting to talk about it. It's nothing to do with that. It's the business plan. Yeah, that came after. So I had the idea. I was presented with this opportunity, and then I really had to learn how to set up a business, how to be an entrepreneur, because for my entire life, going to school, going to work, I was molded into being an employee who is successful, who works for a big business or a big company, a bank. And that's my path. That's what I was told by everyone is what you do in life. Yeah. And I just accepted that at the time.
Your family also, your father also does the same?
He worked in the oil industry, actually. He's retired now. We can talk about that a little bit, in that they didn't give me pressure to stay on that path. And that's really been a massive thing that I'm very thankful for from my family. But no, mostly it was coming from school. Mostly it was school and my teachers that were telling me back in the 90s that is what you do. And so when this mold just broke almost by accident, I had to change. I had to learn a whole new way of living. And so, yeah, the business plan came. If I go back and look at that business plan now, I'll probably laugh my head off that it is absolutely wrong.
Nothing worked according to plan then.
Absolutely not. It's been a lot better than my business plan back then. And our target market is completely different. And the types of trips we do are completely different. But so the business plan had to come eventually, because in order to set up a company in the UAE, of course, you need a business plan. And then I also had to learn about how to set businesses up. I had to meet with company formation specialists to help me with that, because this is not my area of expertise. And to kind of muddle your way through will take a long time, probably more money, and you don't want to make mistakes either.
Mm-hmm. True. So it was you and Nima. So Nima was the one who was going to take care of when you took the guests from here, the tourists to depart.
Yeah, that's right. So Nima was the ground agent, as it were.
Yeah.
And we were kind of the consultancy in the UAE, explaining things to people, offering advice, explaining what might be possible, that kind of stuff.
That's how did you make your first sale?
It's interesting because the first ever clients were living in downtown.
Oh, okay.
So I remember coming to their house and talking to them, and they were just friends. He was a friend of mine who we'd known from banking when we worked together. And he just said, Matt, I know what you're trying to achieve. I'd love to go to Nepal. Can you do something for me? And it was kind of like a test, and really for the first year, everything was a test. Yeah. It was just working with people we know, explaining that we're new, and working with people that trust us and we trust them, and going on it like that. We didn't want to explode onto the scene and make lots of mistakes. We wanted to go slowly and build the business up, but make sure it was a solid business.
So Dubai was just you, and Nepal was just Nima. So two of you.
That's
you started
right.
With two of you.
Yeah, that's right.
So who was your first hire in the company? Who did you hire the first?
In Dubai, it was my colleague Ryan, who's still with us. So he's been with us now for about 7 years, maybe 8 years.
And what was his responsibility?
Well,
back then, maybe now things have changed, I'm sure.
Well, in a small business, you have so many hats, right? Like that's one of the big things you have to explain to people if they want to join is you're not going to, especially someone who's come from a corporate environment, you're not going to be in charge of X. You're going to be in charge of X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, all these different things. And so really what Ryan came in to do was to help with administration, to be our filmmaker, photographer, and to assist with content creation, because his background is in filmmaking and that's what he did his degree in. That's where his passion is.
So at that time you're making content to promote the trips?
Yeah, that's right. For information, for promotional, that kind of stuff, to get beautiful videos out there for people to see what's available and what's possible around the world.
So that was actually going to be my next question. How did you promote the company? Like what kind of marketing activities did you try? Initially when you started, so you were the one who was selling the trip, meeting the guests, planning all the things, sending them the itinerary. As a travel company, I understand you have to go through all of that. So for one person, and then you had this new colleague join you. And so how did you then start growing as a company and started making some money?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question, because what we learnt now in hindsight was the individual person uh, doesn't make you a lot of money. And it's a lot of work, like you've alluded to. So we had an opportunity to work with a school. And that came out of left field. I was just really surprised that schools did these things, that they went to places like the Himalayas on trips. And it just came to us through a good friend. And so I went and had a meeting at the school, and I said, what is it you're looking for? We spoke. I said, well, actually, we can do all of this. This is possible. I have all of the knowledge to help you plan what you want to achieve. And we did that, and we ran the trip, and we learned a lot on that trip. But what it did is it opened our perspective that there was a much different type of client out there that we could work with on a regular basis, for a lot of work. You do have to do a lot of work, and it's a whole different level of responsibility. But it's regular repeat business, and once they work with you and trust you and see that you do a great job, they want to work with you again and over and over. So I wouldn't say that it is 100% reliable business, but it's absolutely more reliable than with the single individual, because they go and they have their once in a lifetime experience, and then they might tell their friends. Whereas when you work with a school or a corporation or something like that, they are happy to do that experience for multiple years. And so that's really where the company started making its money. It wasn't with the individual. It was more when we started working with the schools.
The individuals, it must be tough to sell to adults, right? People
Can be,
because
yeah.
they have all these things to manage. They have a job. Like, it's so much. So how is it working with children versus like taking kids to camps and all these Himalayan adventures versus taking adults? Isn't it more tougher to manage small children? How small are these kids, by the way? What's the age group?
Youngest 12, so they don't get super young.
But
Absolute
still,
youngest
it's
12.
young, yeah.
But mostly they're sort of 15 to 18-year-olds. Interestingly, I find the younger kids much easier to work with than the older kids. Free will gets in the way when they become teenagers, of course. But so how is it working with them? I love it. Students are a completely different prospect to an adult. So as an adult, we've been molded in a certain way, either by ourselves or by society or whatever that might be. And it's much harder for us to break those molds. Whereas a child or a young adult, I would rather say, they are still open. They're still learning. They're still trying to find their way in the world and see things. And so to watch a student have this transformation with their teachers and with their friends on these journeys is really rewarding. Whereas with an adult, we're much more guarded. You can't see that transformation as much. So I find it really rewarding.
Can you share some experience? What kind of transformation?
Confidence building would be one thing. So you might see a student who's quite shy on a trip or isn't really talking to their colleagues and friends, and that'd be on day one. Or they might be nervous, or they might be homesick, or just unsure. Like we all are, but as adults, we tend to hide it a bit more. And then, by day 8, they're bouncing off the walls. They're really happy. They've made new friends. They've learned about the world around them. They come back here and they say, let's say they went to Nepal. They said, we've got some security guards in our school. They're from Nepal. I'm going to go and talk to them. I'm going to ask them about their family. And now I've seen it, I can relate. And all these things on top of all of the learning experiences they're having, of course.
They become more kinder to everybody. Absolutely. And not judgmental towards.
That's right. And I think all of us would agree that when we travel, it just breaks down prejudices. We meet other people. We realize we're all the same. We're the same people. We're just in different parts of the world looking slightly different to each other. And so... yeah, with a student, you just see that transformation a lot more starkly than you would with an adult.
So before you started working with schools, you were trying to promote to the adults, and what kind of marketing did you try, and what marketing do you do now with schools? I would love to know the difference, how you had to pivot.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. It was all learning, all trial and error. I'm not a marketing manager. I never have been, I never will be. I'm still no good at it. And so what I quickly did, almost by luck, because a friend of mine mentioned the company, mentioned the person, was I was introduced to a man called Phil Bedford, who ran at the time a company called the Referral Institute, and I think now they're called Ascentive. So what they did and what I bought into was they taught people referral marketing. I mean, I prefer to say it as they taught me to be an entrepreneur. Because it's so much more than referral marketing. But what I mean by that is I was helped to learn all about how important relationships are. And that sounds strange because all humanity is relationships. But we often forget this. We live in this transactional world where we just get stuff done, we move on, we forget about things. But it doesn't work like that when you're running your own company. When you need to meet people and explain them what you do and encourage them to take your product, as it were, or your service, it's all about trust. It's all about relationship, and it's about whether people like you and trust you enough to do what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's
You do business with people.
That's right. You always do business with people. And so, we tried all sorts of marketing channels. We tried digital marketing. We tried print media. We tried all sorts of the old-fashioned stuff. But what I learned was the referral marketing was what worked for us with the adult and with the schools, but much more with the schools, because trust is a huge issue when it comes to working with
sending the children with some
That's
company.
right.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So what we focus on is referral marketing, and we work on the relationships. We are happy to spend a year with a potential client and just get them comfortable with what we do, spend the time. Of course, we back that up with things like articles, blog posts, videos, photos, things that show credibility in what we do, because you can't expect someone to just turn up, listen to what you say, I trust you, let's go.
True.
There's more to it than that. So there are many channels, but what we focus on is a relationship, and then around that we support it with the material to explain what we do. Yeah.
So it takes 1 year to convince someone to go on a trip?
A school.
School.
Yeah,
Okay.
it depends. So I'm talking more about schools. So if it's with an individual, they're all different. So we've had people who just contact us and say, we want to do this. What can we do? We tell them, and they're gone in a week.
Yeah. Much easier.
That's one type of client. Other people, they might contact us. They say, what can we do? We explain everything to them. They agree on it. Then life happens. They can't get time off work, or they lose their job. They come back a year later. They say, I'm still interested. Eventually time is right. So it just depends on the person. But, it's all about staying in contact with people, the touch points, reminding people that you exist be that through phone calls or a newsletter, or, we don't really do it anymore, but things like online advertising like Facebook and kind of stuff like that. It's that reminder that you're still there after you've had that initial contact as well.
So back in 2010, you started investing in digital marketing, websites and everything.
Website, yes, it was terrible. It was a really bad website. And to this day, we still struggle with having the right website because, we started with a really cheap website because we couldn't afford much and we didn't understand how things work. We then upgraded it to a slightly better one, which we didn't like, a slightly better one, which we didn't like. We ended up getting a really good website about 3 years ago, or maybe more, maybe 4 years ago now. But that website was all focusing on the individual traveler, not the school. And so now we have to change it again.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, websites have 3 years life.
I
So
think
you have to
you're
keep
right.
changing it every 3 years
I
and
think you're
stuff.
right.
So what about the competition? Like who would you say is your competition? Is Exodus and G Adventure, are these guys your competition?
No,
Not
really.
anymore, because now you're focused with schools, right?
That's right. Before, I would say those companies were
Yeah.
absolutely the competition, and they're huge. They're much bigger than us.
Yeah.
But they were the competition. Nowadays, I mean, I don't like to say we have competition. Of course we do. There are other companies doing everything. But we work together. We meet each other all the time in the schools. We have conversations. We explain our challenges and what's working for us. And we work as a team and a community, which is amazing, really. With the schools community, maybe we've just got lucky, but our so-called competitors are incredible people who are just happy to meet for a coffee, hang out, discuss challenges, and just help each other.
They share the
through.
challenges.
I think so.
Interesting. So what is the main barrier to enter schools? If somebody wants to open a business which targets schools, for example.
Credibility. Absolutely. You need credibility. You need a track record. Because without that, a school will not travel.
But you don't start with a track record, right?
That's right. And that's the chicken and egg problem, isn't it? So you also need a lucky break, which was what we had. And we proved ourselves. So yeah, with schools, it's all about trust. It's all about credibility. And it's all about introductions. So I would never just call a school and say, hey, can we have a meeting? They'd just laugh. They'd say, who are you? If we have someone that we'd like to work with, we would speak to our current clients and say, hey, do you know anyone there? Is there anyone that you would feel comfortable introducing us to? And of course, if we have a good relationship with our current client, they would absolutely do that. And that's what they have done for us. And then that's how we introduce ourselves to new.
So referral marketing still applies.
Massively, massively. It's all about trust. It's all about the human connection. And so that will allow us to have that first meeting. And then after that, then we would use our other skills. For example, we can prove what we do and we can prove our professionalism. Then we can back that up with our articles that we've written. So we don't really write sales marketing articles. We write informational articles because we want to give value to people. So if we are talking about something that we love, like biogas in Nepal, which is just an incredible project out there. I can talk about that if you'd like, but it's about sustainable energy in rural communities in Nepal.
Please share. You can go deeper into that.
So it's effectively, in rural parts all over the world, one of the big challenges for people is energy. People who are cooking in places that do not have the technology would usually burn with wood. Wood has many problems burning, right? We know issues with emissions, with smoke, with chopping down trees, for having habitats for local animals that are normally endangered. So for example, in Nepal, they have indigenous rhino, tiger, bears, crocodiles, all sorts of endangered animals that need a place to live. And if people are chopping down all the trees, then the standard story of
taking away their homes, Yeah,
on top of that, you've got women tend to do the cooking in rural Nepal. They cook inside because for half the year it's raining with the monsoon, and they have no chimneys. So if they're cooking with wood, they're breathing in the smoke. They've got lung issues. They've got eye problems. Biogas addresses all of these issues because it uses animal and plant waste, which they have anyway by living on a small farm, is put into a digestion chamber, and out comes methane gas and water. So they can cook with the methane gas. The water just obviously evaporates, and then the waste which they put in comes back out the other side and can be used for fertilizer in their fields. It's like a zero-sum game. It's incredible. And it has all of these benefits. Obviously, students can learn so much from this. And something like that, we would write an article about that. It wouldn't be a come and do this, it's amazing. It'd be like, did you know this is happening in the world? Like these are the benefits. This is why it works. This is why people use it. Nepal government are in front of this and doing that. And that's it. It's just information. Because I think gone are the days when people want to be sold to. Maybe no one ever wanted to be sold to, but gone are the days when that was the norm. And nowadays it's all about sharing value. And that's how we try to approach things.
That is very, very, that is how it works actually. Even in digital marketing, it's all about sharing information and guiding people of what's available and showing them the rights and wrongs, and then helping them choose, which is, I think articles and blogging still works. It worked back in the days.
I don't think it's going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere.
I think it's getting more important, actually.
But now the format of content, because people are more consuming content on audio and video, the text is reducing. Yeah. But it still helps because search engines can't read or listen to audio and video yet.
Yeah, and you might be, say, bored on a plane.
Yeah.
Right? And of course you can still listen to it, but some people just still like reading. I still like reading. If I'm at work and I want to do some research, I want to read because I'm going to have my pad and I'm going to be writing notes. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I still like to read. I obviously see the virtue of video and audio as well. An audiobook when I'm in the car, for example, or podcast when I'm in the car. So listening to people like Gary Vee and all those guys is something I do.
Please do tune into our show as
yeah,
Successful Marketing.
Yeah. And so, yeah, video is probably becoming the number one medium to share things on because smartphones are so much more advanced. Internet now is so fast anywhere in the world effectively. And it's just easy to consume, isn't it? But we still like to focus on the print media too. After all, our key target market are schools, and they wouldn't want us to see us, disappearing from the print media.
Yes, of course. Some places the text still work. In fact, yeah. How are you planning to grow the company?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What's the vision for the brand?
I had a meeting last time. I had an evening with a good friend of mine last week, and we've been talking for a couple of years about working with corporates. So the schools business is there, it's growing, we're really happy. We have, I believe, an amazing product, and I'm really confident to stand behind that and to talk to any schools who would be interested to talk about that because I just believe in it completely. And we want to now do something slightly different with our corporate clients because obviously they're looking for a different experience.
Yeah, we're going back with adults then.
Yeah, let's see.
Seeing adults again.
That's right. It's a completely different prospect. Free will gets in the way, of course, like
Again,
we talked about
yeah.
earlier.
You'll have new challenges.
Yeah, new challenges. But we were talking last week about how that would look, and it's like starting again. There is no, well, we do this with a school, so therefore a corporate would want that. Absolutely not. They're looking for completely different things, and so it's a learning process, which is exciting. So I'm lucky in that my friend who I met last week, he has a lot of experience in that area, and he is guiding me on that journey. And so that's really where we're looking to expand next, because we do run a very limited number of corporate trips a year, which are very successful, but it's going back to that track record. We have that. We need to learn more, and we need to offer more bespoke experiences to what those corporates are looking for. So for example, I mean, I'm just going to pluck things out the air right now. But for example, let's say a corporate wanted to see how their staff work under stress. We can create an environment for that to happen. Or they might want to see how people work collaboratively in an environment that they're excited to be in or happy to be in, and then see how that dynamic works. You can see how the different leadership styles work, or how different emotional styles work together. I think what's really important with a corporate is you need to back that up with data. And so what we would be looking to do is team up with a person or a company who are at the top of their field in that respect, to help us with that side of things, because we can't be all things to all people. We specialize, and then we work with other people and collaborate with other people who also specialize, are at the top of their game in their industry.
Interesting. So you have trips where you can point, you can do things at the trip which show how the leadership style is, or how they operate in stress, or how they work as a team. That's how.
Yeah, absolutely. We can tweak our experiences to make sure that those are built into the experience. I mean, I'm sounding a little bit fluffy, but for example, we're in Nepal and we go trekking on a hard route. Obviously, we have to make sure that those people are healthy and fit enough, and it's safe enough for them to be there. But honestly, for most people who have never been in a mountain style environment, I'm talking about trekking now, not climbing, that's stressful enough.
Yeah.
True. And then you put those people together. We are there to guide them and to look after them, but we can tailor that experience for them. It's going to go deeper than just going trekking. There'll be scenarios that are played out. There'll be activities that people have to engage in when they're on these trips. And so that's how you can kind of like set things up in that respect.
How big is your team now?
Globally or here?
Globally now, because you have Nepal. You still are just concentrating on Nepal and Himalayan.
Actually, no, we've expanded. So we have a joint venture with another company. They have allowed us to open up into Thailand, Malaysia, Rwanda, Uganda, and Morocco.
Okay, so you've grown a lot now.
We
apart from
have,
Himalayas.
because of that partnership. And I think when it comes to, the whole point of this podcast is for people to listen and to understand journeys that we've been on, right? So that was massive for us. So we were introduced by a school client of ours who trusted us and trusted another company doing very similar stuff. I talk about competitors, right? And how we help each other. And we met for a coffee in Dubai just because the owner of that company happened to be in town to meet the same school who's a client of ours. Okay, both same client, both competitors. Yeah. Then we met each other, we collaborated, and we've grown each other's business. We've probably doubled each other's business. So for two so-called competitors, that's not bad.
Yeah. So competition is healthy. It cannot.
Absolutely.
It's not always. In fact, competition always keeps you on your toes. It keeps you active and looking at new innovation comes from competition.
I absolutely agree with that. Yeah. If we were the only company doing things, then I think we'd probably be doing our clients a disservice right now by being complacent. Yeah.
What one thing you had to learn to get the business, or make the business better, or learn while doing the business that you had to adapt to?
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of things I had to learn, which we've talked about already, but one of the biggest things I had to really make an effort to learn and embrace was feedback and criticism, because it's normal, I think, for humans, when we're told something we don't want to hear, to not want to listen to it, or to get angry or upset. And that's normal for all of us. Yeah. So what I've had to learn over the years is two things. One, it's always my fault. No matter what, it's always my fault. So if one of my colleagues has done something, it's a mistake, it's my fault because I didn't help them enough for that instance. If a client also comes and says, Matt, normally it's like, Matt, the trip was great, really loved it. This could be better, It's the ability to listen, take it on board, and use that information to be better. Because at the end of the day, they're giving you amazing information. But at the beginning, I would get all upset and bent out of shape and be like, oh, I can't believe they said that, this and the other. Now it's thank you so much for telling me that. Thank you for giving that information so we can serve the next person better, or you better in the future, if that was the person who's coming back with us. And for most of us, we have to learn how to do that because our ego gets in the way.
Yeah. Feedback is so important. In fact, the more feedback you get, the more learning you have of what you can do better or how you can do it right if it's not working, so that you don't lose on potential customers who might be your customers because you're not doing the job right. I think we should value feedback. For sure.
Oh, it's one of the biggest things. And we should always ask for feedback once whatever it is we've sold has been consumed.
Do you have challenges? Well, I guess now that one of my questions was, because working with schools, for example, is so niche. But now again, you have grown.
Mm-hmm.
You're not catering to mass market. You don't have products for everything. You're still even with this other company or competition that you've tied up with, you're still working for schools, right? Which has audience, which is the kids as the target market to take them to the trips. Having such a niche market and not mass, is it challenging to go so niche? Just work for schools or with schools?
That's a really good question, because when I first set the company up, before we spoke to any schools and we were just going to target that individual, and it was only going to go to Nepal at that time. That's all we had. So that was still really niche. Everyone around me was telling me I was doing the wrong thing. Every single person. Everyone said you need more destinations, you need more different types of customers, otherwise you're not going to survive. And I personally am strongly of the view that by specializing, we survived. If we were all things to all people, we wouldn't have learnt how to be the best at what we do, number one. And we wouldn't have come across to our clients as being knowledgeable. So we had clients come to us who said, Matt, every time someone says I want to go to Nepal, I call you. You're the Nepal guy.
Yeah.
Now with the Nepal Plus people. Yeah. But, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But at the time, that's what it was. And it was a risk. Absolutely, it was a risk. We could have easily failed. But by specializing and by having that deep knowledge of, in that time, a single destination, people trusted us. And they then were happy to contact their friends and say, these are the guys for this place. Because if we just did all things to all people, then I personally believe that our clients might not remember us when someone said Nepal. Or remember
you own the word.
That's right. And I think that's a really good way of putting it. But that's why I think we've been successful. I think specializing is imperative to the success of a business.
And I highly, highly recommend people specialize in their niches. Like, if I share with you my journey, I started as a web design company back in 2004 when nobody even knew about websites or want to have websites. So I realized, it's not going to work, Namita. So we kind of pivoted to being a branding company. So logos, brochure design, which is not my skill at all, to be honest. So I had these designers and stuff who would do that. And then we went through a big recession in 2007 to 2009 when my business was struggling. Marketing is the first expense people cut when things are tough. Of course, nobody wants logo or branding or brochure at that time. So I was really, really struggling, so much so that I couldn't make the ends meet. And that's when I hired I was reading this book called The Pricing Guide for Graphic Designers because I felt I'm not pricing right our projects. And I went and I Googled the author and she offered mentorship. So I took up her mentorship. I always believe in having mentors. And that's going to be my next question to you as well, if you have mentors. But so I started talking to her over Skype. She was based in the US. And so she said, Namita, you're catering to too many people. You need to go niche. So I'm like, okay, so how do I find what's my niche market? He's like, okay, what do you enjoy doing? Back in the days, I enjoyed going to spas, going for coffee and going to arts, like going and checking out art. So she said, okay, maybe you can specialize for marketing or doing stuff for these industries. I'm like, okay. So I started with art studios and I went to these art galleries in DIFC and all these other areas. So I meet the owners. They have these huge paintings with millions of dollars and dirhams, but nobody wants to spend a dirham in marketing. I'm like, Elise, it's not going to work. My mentor's name was Elise Benin. So I'm like, Elise, they don't want to spend the money on marketing. She says, okay, now let's try coffee shops. This is very interesting. So I then go to Starbucks and Caribou and Nero. Like at that time, whatever coffee shops were there. And then I very soon realized that these coffee shops work only with big agencies who are branded agencies. Their offices are all in Kuwait and all these different countries. And there's a big mafia of Lebanese people I could never cross. I'm like, at least this doesn't work as well. So like, now you have spas. So I started with spas, and surprisingly, it clicked. So back in the days in 2010, I started specializing for spas. I launched a brand called Spa Genie, which was like an online portal for spas to display to share their offers and promotions. And within a year, I became a spa marketing specialist. I started speaking at spa conferences. I became judge for spa awards. Like everybody in the spa industry knew me. So if any spa is asking for help, the first name comes to mind was Namita. Even now, 60% of our clients are spas and salons. So niche market is so very important, to go niche, to go and then slowly expand. Like in 2000 recently, we decided to grow and move out of just being concentrated to spas. That's when we started promoting ourselves as a digital marketing agencies, because we can do the same magic for spas that we can do for any other B2C industry. So yeah, that's a separate story again. But today's podcast is about you. And so I earned the word spa marketing specialist, and now we own the word digital marketing specialist. So that's what happens when you go niche. You start owning these words.
You absolutely have to do it that
Yeah.
way. It just worked, and I'm willing to just stake our reputation on the fact that we did that. There's no other way to do it, as far as I'm concerned.
So if a small business struggling, I think you should look at niche market and trying to go where niche, which market you can actually specialize in and cater to them. And then eventually, once you make some good money and you start growing, you have mentors.
Oh, tricky one that. I do. I don't have any kind of, things set in place that are official. I wish I did. I haven't met anyone yet that would fit that bill. But that doesn't mean that I haven't gone to people for advice and used people as soundboards and asked people who have more experience than me what we should do or what I should do. Because, as a so-called entrepreneur, I always feel a bit embarrassed saying that word about myself, because I don't even know if I am. But anyway.
You are. You are.
But like I said, as a so-called entrepreneur, it normally occurs, like sometimes people are just built that way. And they know that's what they want from a young age. But that's quite rare, I think. I think for most of us, it happens for one reason or another. I still think that probably most successful entrepreneurs or all successful entrepreneurs have something inside them that allows them to do it one way or another, confidence or just the right mindset or whatever it might be. But at the same time, you need guidance. Because you can't expect to do everything yourself. Otherwise, you're just going to make mistake after mistake after mistake.
And you don't know everything.
You don't know 10% of what you need to know. So I believe that we should all have people around us who are better than us, who can offer us advice, and be willing, of course, to do that. We don't want to annoy people and just be like, hey, can you help me out? Can you help me out? It also should be a two-way street. So even if someone is more experienced than you, has a longer track record than you, then they might also be able to learn a few things from you, because I don't want to put ages on it, but normally someone with more experience tends to be a little older than you. Normally, not always, but normally. But if you're coming in, say, as a young 20-something-year-old, setting up your own business, and that 20-something-year-old comes and meets me, who's been doing business now for 10 years, they're going to teach me a lot about technology, about social media, about how people are consuming content that I will have no idea about. We had an intern in our office. She was 19, I think. She was so young. She was teaching us all about Snapchat and this and the other. And I'm like, what is this? How on earth does this work? And she taught us that. That's mentorship. It might not be a scheduled meeting you have once a week or once in a month, but they're still imparting knowledge to you. But going back to your original question, do I have mentors? I have people around me. For example, the owner of the company we do a joint venture with, he's a little younger than me. He has more experience than me, and he's a little further down the journey. We talk a lot because we work together a lot. We also meet and discuss things, and he gives me guidance on maybe where we can go to grow to the next step, because he's been through that period. And he also has a mentor who's a little bit further down their journey and a lot bigger than both of us in the same industry, who is helping him out. And so it's become like this kind of like almost like a chain. But we need mentors. I would love to have a more official relationship with someone or some people. I've always been looking for that kind of golden place whereby a set of business owners who all complement each other meet and help each other out. Haven't found it yet. Something's come across my radar in the last few weeks I'm going to explore. And that would be something that I would love. But yeah, absolutely. You have to have people around you who can help you out. And it absolutely cannot be a one-way street because it won't last long.
Absolutely. And like you rightly said, I think books can be mentors. These podcasts are kind of mentors. You should, if there's somebody you know in the industry, and it's no harm in reaching out. Like when couple of years back, I met a woman who has multiple businesses, something what I aspire to have. And I just reached out to her that I'm looking for a mentor. I need some guidance. Would you be open to meet me for coffee? And she agreed. And now she's my mentor. We meet on a regular basis every month. She shares with me what all different things she did and her journey. I put my exactly. It just came out of nowhere by just trying. So maybe if you know someone who you can learn from, just reach out by dropping them an email or a call or a message. Absolutely, no harm in. And you learn from everybody actually, and it has to be a give and take. I'm sure with her also, with my mentor also, I'm sharing something which benefits her businesses. So it's always a give and take. Have you got any, when they say God lives in the mountains, and you've been to mountains so many times, have you got any weird, interesting spiritual experiences while visiting, going to these different mountains around the world? I'm sure you've had some interesting.
Many. I mean, I've almost died in the mountains.
What did he say?
For me, look, I would call myself mildly spiritual. To start with.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not a skeptic. I'm not all I see in front of me is what I believe in, this, that, and the other. I'm not that kind of person. What the Himalaya has taught me is there's a huge amount of energy in those mountains. I can't explain what that means, but every time I'm there, every time a lot of our clients are there, you just feel a different way of being in those mountains. I can't go deep into it. I haven't done a huge amount of research. I just know that that's how I feel. What have I experienced up there? Many things. I mean, I set my business up because I was in the mountains, talking to Nima and being more open. I believe that every kind of climbing is a form of meditation because it helps you focus. I also have had one experience up in the mountains, a pretty brutal one, when I was climbing in Nepal on a mountain called Amadablam. And actually, it almost killed a friend of mine as well on another time.
That's scary.
So what happened was I got something called pulmonary edema. It's fluid on the lungs from high altitude. I had a chest infection about a month before the trip, which I thought I'd got rid of. In fact, I didn't even know it was a chest infection at the time. I just thought I had a heavy cold. Got up into the mountains. I was trekking, and I'd been in the mountains a lot. And so maybe I was a little bit complacent at the time. And when I went up, I got pulmonary edema, and I couldn't breathe. So lungs full of fluid. Sometimes they bleed. I'm sitting there. I cannot sit up in my tent without being completely out of breath for 10 minutes. And eventually, I get so sick that I have to be evacuated. And luckily, in my team, there was a local Nepali doctor who specialized in high altitude, because obviously, vast majority of doctors, they've never been to high altitude. So how would they, know how to react? Luckily, he's a Sherpa who happens to be a doctor. So it's like, I'm
that was lucky.
Yeah. And so he's like, Matt's got to go. He's got to go down. I could barely walk. But at the time, the helicopter evacuation company that I paid for coverage with were not willing to evacuate me, saying I wasn't sick enough. Meanwhile, I was kind of passed out in my tent. Yeah. They were like, take him down on a yak. And I said, and I was, in hindsight, I was thinking, yaks are pretty angry animals. I don't think he's going to be happy with a 100-kilo man lying over his back. Anyway,
you don't look 100 kilo to buy, right?
So it's all muscle.
I'll take that.
So eventually I managed to get dragged down to the nearest village, and I had this. It was just all these things happen for a reason. I was in this village. It was a beautiful little village called Pangbashe, which I've been back to several times since then. And above there is a monastery. And I've been to that monastery before, but the reason I bring that up is I was sitting, I was kind of like gone, passed out. Not gone, but like just deep sleep, whatever you want to call it, in a room waiting for an evacuation, hoping a helicopter would come. And I was kind of out of it. I don't really remember much of what happened. But what happened before the trip was my sister gave me a little pendant of St. Christopher. So we're a Catholic family. I'm not the best Catholic in the world, but she gave me this little pendant and said, carry this so that when you're traveling, you'll be protected. I said, okay. So I put it around my neck, went climbing. And I remember lying in bed and I was kind of like drifting in and out. And this pendant just slipped across my chest 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters. And it just woke me up. And I'm like, I'm getting out of here because I'd kind of given up. I was like, well, no one's coming. I don't care anymore. I'm so broken and exhausted. And then it snapped me out of it like that. And I'm like, I'm out of here. And I kind of like roused myself up. Guys came to the room. I was like, get me out of here. Get me a helicopter. I don't care how it goes. We're just doing it. I don't care. And it just got me to Kathmandu. And obviously made a full recovery. Everything was fine. That's all. And that's what I needed, that little thing that my sister gave me just before that trip started. And the reason she gave it to me is because she had just had her first daughter and I was the godfather. She said, you need to be a bit safer these days.
Yeah. That worked, yeah.
And that's one experience. Another experience I had was before that when, there's lots, but I'll just talk about this other one. I was on top of the mountain. I was standing on top of a mountain in Nepal, about 6,500 meters. And I must have been, I was a little bit hypoxic because I'd gone up too fast and that kind of stuff. And I went up there and I tell this story to a lot of people who ask. And I said, I'm up there, I'm looking at Everest and Makalu and Lhotse and all these famous 8,000 meter mountains. And I'm just looking at it and getting a little bit emotional probably because my brain's all over the place being up there. And I just looked out and I said to myself, I don't know if there is a heaven out there. This is pretty close. And that's another moment I had up in the mountains, which I'll just never forget. And there's more, but those are two that really stick in my mind.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I really believe heaven and hell both are on the earth. Or because mountains are also on they're all on here.
I have no idea. Honestly, that's that one I really don't know.
But I'm sure being top there in the mountains, it must be feeling like
it gives you perspective.
Yeah,
it gives you perspective on life, and for me, more than anything, it helps me to just keep my mind open to the world, and and just let things, when things come, just be aware of them and just be open to anything that's happening. I don't want to be narrow-minded.
Exactly what meditation teaches you, to be aware, to be open. So climbing mountains or going for hiking and trekking is meditative. What about people who are scared of mountains? What should they do to overcome their fear?
That's a really personal journey, I think. So I can't tell people what to do, but I used to have a fear of heights. Not a huge one, just a small. We all have one. We all have a small fear of heights. So I jumped out of planes to get rid of it. And that worked.
It did, yeah?
Yeah, I started skydiving and I enjoyed it. This might sound stupid to say, but I actually got bored of it after a while. So I had a small fear of heights, and I always used to get a little nervous jumping on a plane. Nothing big. Everyone tends to get a little nervous because they're still like, how does this, massive piece of steel get up in the air? But, ever since I started skydiving, that didn't bother me anymore. Mountains, I guess people could say they have a fear of heights. Although I would say that probably once you get on that mountain, you wouldn't feel that because you're on solid ground. Yeah. Unless you're peering over a ledge, which we all get a little bit nervous of doing, you're not going to feel that potentially. Everyone's different, but I don't feel that should be an issue. But if someone's got fears of something, my personal way of dealing with it is just to hit it head on and see what happens. Don't be stupid and don't, go and do things that are going to kill you. But at the same time, just face the fear, and 99% of the time, that fear is going to be unfounded.
Yeah.
But everyone's different. It doesn't work for everyone. I'm not a psychologist.
But at least try. Face the fear and do it at least once before you give up on this on the experience at all, because heaven is up there in the mountains.
You've always got the fallback. So the other thing is, kids ask me this sometimes. They say, how do I know what I want to do in life? And I'm like, just try it. It's like you say, just try things. What's the worst going to happen? Don't try stupid things, but try things within reason that will allow you to have new experiences. And then that's the only way you're going to find your passion. That's how I set up my companies, because I tried new things and I found my passion. So if we don't try things, we'll never know.
Would you give advice to someone who's looking to quit their job and start? What advice would you give to that person who is in your shoes now, which you were then, back then, and when you were 27? You wish someone told you that.
Yeah, big question. I'm glad you asked it, because I was actually thinking about this just yesterday. Get ready for the fight.
Get ready to fight.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not easy. It's gonna be tough, like really
It's
tough.
going to be, for me, the hardest thing I've ever done, and continues to be the hardest thing I've ever done. You have to fight every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
And because it's a business, it's not a high standard paying job. Like initially, at least, you will not have regular monthly income coming in. There's always going to be, like, if you're used to these paycheck to paycheck jobs, there are going to be months where you might not get a salary.
That's right.
And
Many
be prepared.
months.
Yeah.
It's
And it's a business. It'll go like this.
That's right.
Like a heartbeat.
Absolutely. And what you do is you grow the business so that it can support in hard times. That's how every business works as well, without just hoarding and not growing in other ways. But yeah, for me, it's all about get ready, make sure you have the stomach. I never considered how hard it would be. And as you grow, it gets harder. Because you always grow a little bit faster than you can hire to take up the slack. Maybe that's just bad planning on my behalf, but that's how I found it so far. So yeah, it's a slog. And that's why I go back again to, in my personal opinion, you have to have the passion behind it, because when the going gets tough, which it will over and over and over again, you have to dig into those reserves and to the reason why you set it up in the first place. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
Otherwise, you're very close to giving up, which you should know, but no one should give up. Well, I don't know. Maybe sometimes if things are not working out, probably it's a good idea to give up and go back to the. I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong way to.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never gone down that road. So no matter what's happened, I mean, we had the earthquake in Nepal in 2015. We're down to $600 in our bank account.
Wow.
We still didn't give up because, I don't know, I had faith and I had belief that the company was still the way it should be. Since then, we've quadrupled in size, but that was scary. That was a scary moment. I remember going to Spiti Valley in northern India for the first time that summer after the earthquake. And you know what? When you have big negative things occur in your company, what's happened for us, and I believe what will happen for a lot of people, is it actually acts as a catalyst for you to focus and grow. Because you get to that brink and maybe you're getting a little bit complacent, a little bit easy.
It's like a wake-up call.
It's a massive wake-up call. A massive wake-up call. And that led to us going through a period of really strong growth since then. Mostly to prevent us from getting that close to the wall again in the future.
But then back then in 2016, you were still focused with Himalayas, right?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
So then how did you manage to quadruple the business?
That was because of the connection with with the joint venture we now have, because they were operating in Laos, Thailand, and Malaysia. We were operating in Nepal, a little bit in India. They loved what we were doing in Nepal. We loved what they were doing there. I mean, we have so much respect for each other. That's what led to it. It was that joint venture and just trusting that company will do what they say they'll do, and that's what led to the big growth.
I think it's a very good key takeaway here is when you find partners, when you see partners complementing businesses that are complementing your business, it's a good time or good idea to partner and try something. But then there's also luck plays here. You found someone who's right, who's wanting, like, who's on the same frequency in the mindset, because not everybody is in the mindset of growth and together and partnership. Some competition looks at you as just competition and wants to compete. I don't know.
Yeah. Most, I think, and that's absolutely the wrong way to look at things.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. So you if you're lucky, or maybe you keep trying and you would get lucky then, I guess, because I don't believe luck is only, it's hard work and consistent hard work and failures and again hard work is equal to luck.
I agree. I think that you make your own luck.
Yeah.
And I think that you also have to have, I've said it a few times, you have to have that mindset of being open. You don't let things pass you by when they come, because they'll come. They always come.
They always come. Opportunities are always going to show up no matter what, whether you take them or not. Then again, but keep an open eye to kind of take up an opportunity. Any other activities you enjoy apart from climbing and stuff? Now you have skydiving. You have.
Well, I stopped skydiving. I got bored of it. I know it sounds ridiculous. Everyone says it's ridiculous. I did like 50 jumps and then I kind of got fed up with it and moved on. But climbing has always been there. And hoping to go back to India next summer to climb an unfinished mountain we didn't finish a couple of years ago. Still love rock climbing. Play a lot of squash, although recently I've been off that just because I got a shoulder injury, but it's getting better now. And recently, and I never thought this would happen, but maybe it's a sign of age, I've started really enjoying running.
Usually it's cycling for
Yeah, that's right.
middle-aged men.
Oh, I
Yeah,
shouldn't say
middle.
that. I'm going to be ostracized. But no, I just really started enjoying running, and I've gone through kind of like a health kick in the last 9 months or so. And my running's just getting faster and faster and faster, and getting less and less tired, and I'm really enjoying that. But if go, it's still the mountains are still where
Your
it's all
favorite.
at for me.
Yeah. You read books, right?
I read now and then, nowhere near as much as I'd like to. I'm consuming a lot more online these days. Yeah, so it's a lot more sort of non-fiction, factual-based stuff that I'm reading these days. A lot less fiction, which I almost to zero fiction, I'd say right now, which is a failing of my part because I think that that's important too. But I'm worried about what your next question is going to be. Let's see what happens.
Your favorite book that you would like to give to someone?
Yeah, this is the problem. Oh, I have no idea. You know what? It's a really hard one. It would be a fiction. It wouldn't be a non-fiction book. Simply because I think that you still need to have that escape and that creative side to you. I think still like one of my favorite ever books would be anything by Donna Tartt, anything by Bret Easton Ellis, and then going into a different genre. Huge fan of Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. Just to get yourself escaped from the world, because I think you need that removal from like normal life now and then, and just kind of like relax. But yeah, I'm not the biggest reader at the moment, unfortunately. I'll be the first to admit that.
But what non-fiction are you reading? Anything in non-fiction you mentioned?
Right now, nothing. All of it is research. So everything is being done researching things like sustainable projects around the world, how businesses can operate in a sustainable manner. What I mean by that, because sustainability is a buzzword, isn't it? But what I mean by that is how can we operate as a business to leave the smallest carbon footprint that we possibly can in everything we do, from what we do in the office all the way out to what we're doing in Nepal or into other parts of the world. I think it's absolutely imperative that we all do this now.
Maybe you can share what you do and a few things we can learn and maybe apply in our businesses.
Yeah,
have you adopted some new practices for being more sustainable as a business?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about something really easy in the office to start with. Don't order. Don't order food. I'm probably going to be hated now, whoever's listening in, but there's so much plastic waste. So it's unbelievable. If we take a moment to look at what's in front of us when we order something in, it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. So that's one thing. So if we do order, very rarely we will order something from a business. I'm going to plug Tocado because everything they do is done with paper and wood, you know, like the cutlery or the wrapping. Another great one we use is Lime Tree Cafe. I don't know these guys, by the way. I'm not endorsing them in any way, shape or form, although I kind of am. Lime Tree's awesome. They actually have a cafe at the bottom of our building. They use paper and card only, and then their so-called plastic is made from tapioca. So if you are going to get something in, do some research and see who's making an effort, you know. And in the case of Lime Tree, they're not even that expensive where we are in our office. I mean, I'm saving money by using them. Plus, I don't have a motorbike guide to do it. I go downstairs and walk. So I don't be lazy. I go down there and actually get something. Going kind of like a little deeper with the biogas project back in Nepal again, that project is carbon neutral in itself, but it also is a carbon offset. So by using the animal waste, which is already creating carbon emissions, of course, anyway, but it doesn't, it kind of like sets that carbon. It doesn't allow anything more to go into the atmosphere, because if you are burning wood, of course, you're releasing more emissions into the atmosphere. So that carbon that's already been emitted is just being reused in the project. So just to give a few numbers, an average family in Nepal uses 4.5 tons, well, it's between 2.5 and 4.5 tons of firewood a year if they need to heat their food using wood, for a family of about 5 to 10 people. These are rough numbers. That obviously is having a multiplier effect on the carbon emissions, because not only are they burning the wood, they're also taking that tree out of the cycle, and they're making smaller the amount of vegetation is out there to help with the planet. So by doing that, we actually ran the numbers on climatechange.org, and the amount of carbon that's being offset with that project for one trip that we do for 2 biogas plants offsets roughly about 150 to 200 return trips between the UAE and Kathmandu for a person flying. So yeah, obviously something we're really proud of. That's a massive project that we think is incredible. But that's a big thing, you know. Every company can't do that. Yeah. But I think, you know, little things in the office, making sure that you try not to order in so much. Like bringing in your own food makes a big difference. It's also healthier, stuff like that. Water. I mean, I don't drink out of plastic water bottles anymore.
Yeah, me too.
It's an easy thing. Yeah, okay, the cooler bottle, you could argue, is still plastic, but it's reused a bunch of times. Or if you can stretch to it, because it is expensive at the moment, you can get the filters attached to your taps in the house now. I know they're expensive and they're probably not economical at this stage.
They're not really expensive. You get a beautiful filter by this company called Liquid of Life, and I would like to share because it's just 1,000 dirhams.
Oh, is it?
For 1 year worth of water.
That's not bad. Yeah.
And it's so small, it's tiny, takes up a little space under your sink, and you have a tap.
Okay, yeah. See, that's way better. Then there's like zero plastic waste. I mean, there might be tiny bits within the filter, but honestly, compared to what's happening every time you drink it, and then I go to these, sometimes like these places where, where you're going as a customer and they give you this 200 ml bottle of water.
That, yeah. Oh. I'm like, shit, I don't want to drink water. It's better. Let it be.
So that's something anyone can do. It's super easy just to get rid of all that single-use plastic. I laud every restaurant out there that gives you free table water. I would pay for that table water just so I wouldn't have to have
to open another bottle of true that. Any favorite podcast you listen to?
Mentioned Gary Vee. Yeah, Gary Vee's a big one, and he's really sensational.
He talks to millennials though.
Yeah, he
talks
does.
To kids.
He does. So what I like about him is he's just got so much energy, and you do learn from him. So what I learned from him is he's a good motivator. He absolutely is for what you say. Like his target market is millennials and younger probably. But at the same time, he kind of like pumps you up in the car. If you're having a rough time, it gets you going again for the day. And he, like I mentioned earlier, I have no understanding on how social media is working these days. He talks a lot about that. So whether we take that on or not, at least we understand where it's being consumed right now. Something that I'm really shocked about is he keeps talking about TikTok.
Yeah. He loves TikTok. Maybe he's going to invest. I think he's invested in it or something.
Must have, right?
He's the only one who talks about TikTok. I don't even have the app yet.
Actually, my wife and I played on it just for a laugh the other day. Anyway, whatever. That's another story. But like, if you see like our young staff in Nepal, they're like all on TikTok.
Is it?
Oh, it's hilarious. They're all doing these songs. It used to be called like Musical.ly or something, right? Now it's TikTok. I don't know which one it is, but that is exploding. Anyway, I learned that from Gary Vee. It's quite funny. But yeah, that's the main one I'm listening to. But I'm definitely not the guy who listens to all of the standard guys, but he's the one I spend most of the time listening to. And sometimes Tim Ferriss, I like him as well. Yeah. Sometimes I listen to his stuff. But yeah, that's it. Like just a couple, here and there when I got some time.
What have you learned in your entrepreneurial journey so far, and key takeaways you would like these budding entrepreneurs or small business owners to learn from your journey and your story?
Yeah, maybe I've said a few of these things before, but I think ask for help is a big one. So once you've decided to go down this journey, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to seek a mentor, and furnish yourselves with skills that can help you, because one of the biggest things, or the biggest thing you should invest in, is learning. If you don't do that, all you're relying on is what you already know. And what you already know is a tiny percentage of what you could know. So I think that's the big thing. That's what I did when I set up. It wasn't done consciously, but it's what made our company work. Going back to Ascensive, what I was talking about earlier. So that would be the biggest thing, invest. And also the second thing is, don't try to do everything yourself. So if you don't know how to brand yourself, ask help. If you don't know how to make a website, ask someone to do it for you. Otherwise, you're just going to be sitting there wasting time, banging your head against a brick wall, and wasting money, even if it's not cash that's going out the door. It's opportunity cost of other things you could be doing. Yeah, those would be the biggest things I'd say. And then going back again, get ready to fight.
And it's not going to be easy. Be ready and keep going.
That's right.
Where would you like to share anything about Mountain Quest, where they can find you if they want to go on a trip with you? You said you're going to start with corporate soon. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, if anyone has listened to this, is interested, I'm more than happy to talk to people even just about what we talked about today. If anyone wants any kind of like information or advice on my journey, that's totally okay. I'm not here to plug the company, but if people do have any interest, it's just mountainquests.com. The website is undergoing another revamp, but it'll give a brief idea of what we do. And yeah, I just hope that I've given some sort of good information to someone out there.
You shared a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Thank you for accepting my invite. and being open to sharing your journey.
And thank you for having me. It's been great.
Pleasure. Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation and you got so much learning and a lot of key insights from Matt's story. I definitely have. Hope to see you in the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the channels wherever you're listening to. Do share the podcast, comment, tag us, share with your friends and family, and help us spread the word. Thank you again for watching or listening, and see you next time.